Hello and welcome to Storytime with Christina. Today's special guest is Gina. Hello, Gina.
Hello.
Okay, hi. Welcome back to Storytime. In today's Storytime, I have a special guest. This is Gina. Gina's been my wonderful client for almost 2 years now. And she has a wonderful story. I think she's my biggest case study. I call her my test smarty.
I'll take it.
And we found each other a couple years ago, obviously, and she was referred to me by a psychologist who was working with her and realized that her limitation was her breath, and she knew that I knew about that subject. So she referred her to me. And when I met Gina, I guess we'll talk a little bit more about that. I want to go to you now.
Yeah.
And kind of describe to me our first meeting.
Yeah. I'll never forget the day that I met Christina. We talk about it a fair amount, actually. Like she said, I was referred to her by a therapist and got her phone number, gave her a call, and she said she actually had some time to meet that same day, which I first off, I found surprising, and that was like really different than other people I'd been interacting with, trying to kind of get help with my mental health and my breathing and my sort of like activated physical state. So I said, okay, great, and we met up, and I thought it was going to kind of be like a quick, hello, and kind of setting up, like a plan or like a program to, meet more in the future. And so we meet, and we're sitting, and I kind of started talking about what I've been going through, talking about how much, what a hard time I'd been having with my breathing. And Christina kind of stops me talking. She said, okay, I hear all of that. I'm hearing you. Let's do some exercise. Let's do some, try out some different like breathing patterns. And just right then and there, she had me start, trying different things, doing these different breathing patterns. And we spent at least an hour together that same day. It was the first time I'd met her. I'd never met anyone like her with like her kind of energy and, and ideas. And we had our first session that day. It was like, I didn't expect, that to be like such a full kind of session. And I like learned so much in that first session. It was like, it was meant to be. I'll never forget it, yeah.
But also, keep in mind, too, that she had gone to the hospital multiple times because she felt like she couldn't take a breath.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it had been a few months, maybe 2 months by then, of tons of doctor's appointments, all kinds of therapists, a couple different healers, called the paramedics at least once, had gone to the hospital, I think, maybe 5 or 6 times.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it had been a pretty kind of harrowing, like, few months, and the primary thing I was experiencing was, like, really intense difficulty breathing throughout the entire day, every day, and it felt really related to, like, my body positions. I was unable to lie down flat. I, like, couldn't breathe if I was lying down, so I was sleeping kind of, like, in a ball, and just having a really hard time, and, mentioned that to this therapist, and all these therapists were kind of had different ideas and different, like, things that were helpful, but I had this one who knew Christina and said, like, I think, working with someone that really knows breath and, like, this specific, issue could really help you, so.
Yeah, so, I don't want to say that what I think prepared her for the work that we did was all those years of therapy, this has happened to me now since I've been working with her, people coming to me after talking for so many years. Yeah. And now they're just like kind of talking about their reality, and it's just like all still stuck in her body. And when we met, she was immobilized. We have immobilization. We have, so that's like parasympathetic, but that's the vagal response that's like feigning death. It's like our reptilian brain turns on, and that's the negative kind of, or the polarity of the vagus nerve, and its ability to, protect us by keeping us immobilized, right? It's one of the most ancient, like, reactions that we have. And she was stuck in that position. She did not feel safe in any other position. If I tried to get her outward and extend, she would feel nauseous. And, fast forward a little bit to this day,
Yeah.
we can extend, she can hang from a bar. She still has nausea in the very ends of this extension, and we really work on building safety. And then in the beginning, we built so many pathways back to feeling safe, humming, lengthening the exhale. And when I first met her, she could not inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 4, hold 4, which translates to her CO2 tolerance sucked. And this is the biochemistry she was living in for so many years. And all we did was, okay, let's close the nose, or let's close the, don't close the nose. Let's close the mouth.
Yeah.
Let's start to breathe through the nose. Let's start to pause. Let's create small pauses, and slowly started to move outwards. But with that, it unravels you. So she went, at one point you were given bipolar medication.
Yeah, I tried a couple different medications.
Like, I'm like frozen right here.
Yeah,
so
exactly,
She's I know this is kind of cheesy to say, but like, she's a Pisces. She's a little fish. She just wants to swim upstream. She's so sensitive. Like,
yeah.
But, talking about looking at my brother, who, dear sweet Pisces, is bipolar. So it's like, it's this spectrum of who you were and the depth of who you were.
Yeah.
But what I really need to do is like tension you up. Granted, she had never worked out ever in her life. So her experience in high heart rate, high breathing volume, her body only knew that as anxiety. Yeah.
And it took kind of getting to a breaking point in a way for me to, really reach out to someone and find Christina. But I think that, I could have benefited obviously from so much of what we've done, long before that. But it's interesting how, it was meant to be at the time and place, I think. But it took, getting to such a breaking point with the breathing. But then over time, over the past almost 2 years, what I've sort of wanted and needed to work on has evolved so much and changed so much. It's like, at first it was these really basic things, getting me to feel safe in my body, and that was such a huge part of starting to work with you, was feeling safe lying down with just you in a room. I was at a point where I didn't really feel safe when I wasn't in a hospital, which is crazy. Like, I didn't feel safe at home with my friends or family, because I just only felt safe when I was around medical doctors, because I thought that was sort of the pinnacle to me at the time of feeling safe in my body. So it's crazy. It's crazy to think about now. But then over time, as we sort of broke down that barrier of just feeling safe lying down and feeling safe moving and feeling safe breathing,
rolling around. And again, it's going back to simple primitive patterns. You guys, it's just re-inputting these things and these subtle patterns, which now 2 years later, we use all those subtle patterns that got you back to safety now in so much more advanced ways.
Exactly.
We add it to movement, and I'm like, hey, remember that thing? Add that to that, and you're like, oh.
Exactly. And doing things, and things like climbing. Started experimenting with climbing with Christina, which is something I'd always had a lot of fear surrounding, but really wanted to try, and using these kind of basics and these patterns that we developed for things that are much more kind of felt more high risk or feel more kind of
But you had to reach that point. So the first year it was being safe, getting in your body. We got you out of some depression, off that medication, which I didn't tell her to go off of. It was a gradual, natural thing. And they gave you a very small dose.
Yeah, exactly.
And they didn't actually diagnose. So again, I wanted just
and you were always very supportive of other things I was trying, and I appreciated that as well. It was sort of all of that was going on at the same time that we were doing our work. Exactly. And you were there to hold the space for us to do our movement and breathing,
and tell you hey, I don't actually know what I'm doing, but I understand principles, and I understand. I have really strong intuition, and hey, you want to go on this journey with me? And I have learned so much as a practitioner knowledge through her, and the experimentation that we playfully got to go through. And then about a year into it, or a year ago, we started strength training.
Yeah.
And that's when she started deadlifting, when she started squatting. Raise your arms up.
Yeah.
See how she can actually straighten her arms. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
This is what it was like before. She couldn't actually straighten her arm, and she'd never engage the muscles.
Yeah.
And so, just getting her to strength train, now fast forward, she's taking pole dancing classes. And, has autonomy of her body, and, knows how to, move things around. And we just built that from, you know, from the ground up, from the breath out.
Right.
And what else would you like? Anything else before
One thing
we
would note also that a lot of that was I was living in another city for a lot of this work, and we did a lot of it over Skype, which was something else I don't know, with anyone else, like don't think would have worked as well as it did, and been sort of still so like such a kind of consistent like helpful thing to have. But Christina was so like consistent about our sessions and like
homework,
daily
coding.
Yeah, and I really think I really thought that it's like such a testament to your intuition and your attention to someone you're working with that we were able to do those sessions over Skype. Like that's always really struck me. Like you were able to see such nuances in my body and in my mind and what I was going through, and even when I was like 3,000 miles away, which is just that's blowing my mind.
Totally. And to kind of talk about Gina now, I guess. Yeah. And so Gina, like, I am so proud of her because when we meet now, it's like the first 10 or 15 minutes are her talking to me about the things she's seeing in herself. All these patterns of like being and ways of thinking, and they're unraveling. It's because she's worked on so many subtle layers of breath that her reality has much more clarity. She's like, why did I act like that? Like, I feel this thing coming up. But wait, that's not mine. I didn't attach to that. Like she has an understanding of what's hers, what's not, how to shift it, how to change her physiology. She now has a spectrum of feeling.
Right.
And now we have like so much fun. And when we do work out, she still gets nauseous. Like we slowly expand her capacity to move without getting nauseous. And what usually gets the nausea away is story time.
Yeah, it is.
What we're doing now, I'll sit there. She'll know that I'm doing this. She's like, I'm nauseous. I'm like, okay, let me tell you a story.
Yeah, it's really a remarkable thing. We've really, we've expanded like you said, the capacity of like, what it takes to get me to that nausea. Like it doesn't happen. That was something I experienced all through growing up. I kind of associated movement and like, physicality with anxiety and nausea and my heart rate being too high and that making me really anxious, and it just kind of spinning into this cycle.
Now you're deadlifting your body weight and squatting shit and
so now
throwing some weight around.
The capacity
swinging those bells.
Is much different. Yeah, exactly.
Now she has a booty. No, I'm just kidding.
The dream, if only. But when it does happen, when I do kind of reach those what feel like limits, or like what I used to think of as limits. Capacities. I see. I don't know. I have so much more clarity and understanding about what's going on. I feel like, and
now we explore.
Yeah, and can keep myself, calmer in a state where I'm able to kind of, see it for what it is and not have it, represent all these other issues.
Totally.
That's my MO.
Yeah. So, I think we covered a lot in a short amount of time. And the purpose of this was to share, again, what I've created with primal coding, what it's capable of doing for others. And then, just through the experience of Gina, I've, again, learned so much. And if you have any questions about anything that we talked about today, please feel free to leave a comment. I would love to maybe have another episode with Gina and go deeper into all these things. We just skirted over the things that we went through over the past year and a half, but we could definitely dive deeper into how we move, like specifically how we move past all of these challenges and things. So thank you for joining me today. Story time is over. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, that. And the book is closed.